Hello and welcome to Theme Park Workshop, episode 42. My name is Adam Johnson. I'm here with Kelly and Bella, and we're jumping right where we left off, talking about HHN 32. And you know what? We're not going to deal with long intros.
But you know what I do want to deal with? Our house rankings. I want to hear what y'all think about this event.
It is one of the strangest tales ever told. I think it will thrill you. It may shock you. It might even horrify you.
Welcome to the Dark Fantastic!
I'm not a monster, Jake.
I'll show you who I am and what I am.
Yeah, you love this one. It's a scream, baby.
It's showtime.
I am your mother.
Time to float.
I don't feel like she's not a mistake at all. Like she's better for being different.
Gender fluid.
No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for.
Hey, Michael!
What's your favorite scary movie?
You want stars? I'll give you stars.
So if any of you feel that you do not care to subject your nerves to such a strain, now is your chance to, well, we've warned you.
I do. Who wants to start?
Anyone can go first.
Are we gonna do?
Oh, yeah. So for those of you listening at home, we're going to go 10 through 6, 5 through 3, and then our 1 and 2. That way there's still some suspense. You can also keep track.
Yeah.
It'll be fun. We did it last year. I think it turned out pretty good. So
Yeah.
that's the way we're going to do it. Do you want to go first, Bella? Because you went first with Zone?
Yeah.
Or do you want one of us
I'll go
to?
first.
Okay.
I'll go
Slay.
first.
Do it.
Okay.
Do it now. Come
Okay.
on.
Okay, so I kept track of my run totals this year. I wanted to do it last year, but I forgot, so I didn't. But this year, I made it a point to keep track of my runs in houses because I was very excited about houses this year. So I had 93 house runs total for the season, so it's just shy of 100. Lil said I didn't get to 100, but it's fine. That's a lot of houses. But at number 10 with 5 runs, which is a big deal for me in this house, was Exorcist. And believe it or not, I don't hate that house. I actually had fun in it the couple times I've done it. Very scary for me, very smelly, very loud, even with earplugs. That one felt the loudest. But I did enjoy it at the end of the season. I don't have much to say about this house because I don't know the Exorcist franchise. I will not see the new movie. I don't really know anything about it, but I know that everyone on Horror Nights, Twitter, Universal, like everyone that I know loved this house. Like this was one of their top favorites. So I'm really glad that Exorcist kind of because I feel like Exorcist doesn't really have that good of a reputation. Reputation. That's the word I'm looking for. They don't have a really good reputation with Horror Nights. Correct me if I'm wrong. So I know everyone was like, oh, like an Exorcist house, like, yay, so excited, whatever. But like seeing that everyone really enjoyed it and it was like a top house for people, that was fun to see. So I did enjoy that. Not my favorite, but I'm glad everyone else liked it. And then at number 9 with 4 runs total, we have Blood Moon. So, Blood Moon. What to say about this one? Well, the first time I walked into this house, I started sobbing when I made eye contact with the first scare actor. Yeah, it took me a while to get back into that. I did that house one time with Jay, Dewey, Sophie, Jay, who's all of them are on Twitter. Y'all know who I'm talking about. I did it with them, and Jay and Dewey were actually like dancing and dropping it low in like the church scene with the pews. So that made that run easier. And then anytime I went in it since then, that's all I thought about. So it made that scene easier. Gorgeous house, gorgeous sets, the bell tower, the moon, like the like body with the candle, like gorgeous house. But that one shook me to my soul, to my core a little bit. Yeah, I know everyone loved it though. I know everyone loved it. Everyone was doing the chants, lest we all slay. Whatever the other one is, they killed mommy and daddy, period. I also don't have much to say about that house because I also didn't do it that much. And then at number 8, with 4 runs, this one changed a lot from my preseason ranking. This was at number 2 for my hype list. Oh my god. This was originally at number 2 for my hype list, but it dropped down to number 8. We have The Last of Us. Do we really have the same ranking?
Yes. I don't know if we want to spoil this, but so far, yes.
Oh my god, that's funny.
Maybe Adam can cut it out, but I just wanted to let you know that we really are twins.
That's funny. But yeah, unfortunately, The Last of Us was number 8 for me. So I've never played the game. I don't have the attention span for a story game. I don't do that. I want to, but I can't focus. And I watched the show and I was like, oh my god, this house is gonna be so amazing and it's gonna be so awesome. I'm gonna love it. And it was so amazing and so awesome, but that house was really scary. And for me, the bloaters and the clickers were terrifying. And like I did it a lot during the day, so I couldn't really see. But like it was really cool. I loved going in that house with my friends who like are big fans of the game and like know more about it. It was exciting. It was great hearing them talk about it. Like Christian Nixon, who we had on for the prep episode, he loved that house. I loved hearing him go on and on about it. Wasn't really my thing. I'm glad people loved it. I wish I got to do it more because I was so excited about it, but like everything else in the event was so perfect and so amazing that like 8 through 1 are or 7 through 1 are really hard to rank for me because I loved every house except Blood Moon Exorcist.
Bella, I'm scared that our whole 7 through 10 are gonna be the same.
I don't think they are.
Or 6 through 10. I mean, there might be. We'll see.
I'm gonna laugh really hard if they are. Like, actually, there will be giggles.
It could be close. Anyway, go ahead.
Number 7. This house was originally at number 6, so it dropped down 1. But with how many runs? With 6 runs total, we have Chucky. Contrary to popular belief and to what I said previously, I had a great time in this house. I loved it. I don't like Chucky. I actually want to run Chucky over with a car and back over him a couple times. But I loved it. I thought it was so fun. I loved all the puppets. And I loved that hallway with the boxes and that one like kind of like surfboarding. I don't know. I loved Big Chucky. I loved the outside part. I loved it. I didn't like the chainsaws, but little Chucky with the little chainsaw, really cute. I don't know. I didn't watch the show. I tried to and I didn't like it. Shocker. I know. I'm sorry. I don't like Chucky. I tried though. I tried, and that's all that matters. But I had a great time. Was it the best house I've ever done at Horror Nights? No. Was it the worst house I've ever done at Horror Nights? No. Like, it was just a silly, goofy time. And it was fun. I know a lot of big Chucky fans, like you, Kelly, loved it. Have more things to say about it. But as for me, it was good. It's number 7. That's higher than I thought it was going to be. And I think that's a big moment. That it's that large. That large. It's not that large. It's that
living large.
It's a living large at number
he's living large.
7. Don't fuck with the Chuck. I loved that one. Number 6, with 16 runs, we have Dueling Dragons. Choose thy fate. I loved this house. I didn't ride the ride when it was Islands. I didn't know anything about it going into it, but I loved it. Gorgeous house, gorgeous sets. The costumes were amazing. I loved the narration. Like, it was just a good time. I loved the trolls. I loved the dragon hand. I loved it. I went blue side 7 times. I won 5 times and I lost twice. And then my luck wasn't so good on fire side, on the red side. I went through that side 9 times and I lost 7 times and won twice. So not the best odds, but that was my fault because I usually went opposite the side my friends went, like later on in the season. Actually, it's one of the houses that I did solo because I did 3 houses solo this year and that was a big deal. Well, okay. It was solo, but I made friends in line, so I don't know if that counts, but I'm still counting it for me. I loved Dueling Dragons. I really hope Universal does more with like past rides. Like Poseidon's Fury would be incredible as long as they figure out how to put a water tunnel back in it, because that was probably one of the coolest things I've ever seen in a theme park. I know it won't happen. I know it's not logical and it doesn't make any sense, but for me, I want it.
They could probably do like a fake one, like with lights, which would
Yeah, with
still be
lights, like
cool.
with that laser effect.
Oh yeah, they could do the B mode from the ride if the tunnel didn't
Yeah.
work. Just
Yeah.
all the fog.
I
Yeah.
also feel like there are a lot of tailors that would still be happy to come back because it closed so
Mhm.
recently. So if they did that soon, like that would be pretty cool.
I think it could be really interesting. But I'm gonna say it again. I loved that house. I loved that you picked your own side. I loved seeing Merlin at the end. I'd always be screaming, like, yeah! Be jumping up and down, freaking out whenever I won. It was just like the best. But I will never forget the time I walked through that house and there was a freestyle cup rolling around on the floor with the dragons. And it was really funny. And then one of the last times I went through that house, the dragon hand accidentally like hit me. And it was so funny. And I was laughing so hard. But yeah, I loved that house. But yeah, that's my top 10 through 6. I'm very intrigued to hear everyone's, especially now that I might have a very similar one to Kelly.
Well, so remember how we talked about how Bella and I are twins because we have two of the same signs in the same places. We have almost exactly the same list. In fact, like a week ago, our 6 through 10 would have been exactly identical. I know that we're going to differ in the top 5 a little bit there, but yeah, our 6 through 10 are all of the same houses. 2 of them are flipped, and she knows which ones are flipped.
Well,
So, I'm pretty sure Adam's are going to be quite different from ours, but
yeah, the Capricorn energy is striking hard.
so yeah, well, I'll get into it, but it was almost identical, which is fun. So my number 10 was also The Exorcist Believer. Longtime listeners know that I have a specific phobia that causes me to not watch Exorcist movies, especially the Exorcist franchise. And that is a phobia of vomit. So while that wasn't prevalent in this house like it was in the 2017 one that I absolutely will never do, so I'm glad that they did not bring back the original. I went that year, didn't do that house. So it wasn't that bad. There were no smells related to that, but there was a pretty horrifying visual and sound effect that is in one of those rooms with like the disappearing walls. So I would get a little traumatized in there if I hit that correctly, and I always had to like try to speed through it, which is hard when you have the conga line. So that is one reason that it was always going to be my number 10. But I'm also just in general not a huge fan of exorcism stuff. That the smells were intense there, and that kind of stuff can really get to me if it's a negative smell. So I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite house. However, the demons were super cool and scary. The lighting was really cool. The girls were incredible. Like the scare actors in there freaking killed it every single time. It was very scary. It was actually not the house that scared me the most, but to be honest, I didn't give it as many chances as some of the other houses. So
you just reminded me about Exorcist. There was one time I went through with my friend. I'm holding onto his shoulders, and we get to the first girl in the chair when she's like on the side that you're walking on. And I'm like, because I didn't look up the first time I did that house. So I had no idea what any of it looked like until like I watched a video and then I forgot, right? So we're walking by her. I'm like, please tell me that she's fake. Like, please. Because she was moving so robotically. I'm like, yeah, she's not real. She's a mannequin. He goes, no, like, she's not real. Like, I promise. Like, you're fine. Like, she's not real. She's fake. Not even a second later, she gets right up in my face and I almost hit the floor and drag him down with me. Like, it was probably the scariest moment ever. And like, you know, the girl, you're walking like around in like the bedroom and she's like in that hallway.
yes,
She'd always come right up to me and I'm like, don't look at me like that. Don't look at me like that with your big forehead. Don't get away. Don't look at me.
I love when they use the big fake foreheads.
Me
Throwback to The
too.
Shining.
I love it. Or like the one that like goes around the door. Oh my god, my soul left my body. Which I
That
guess
one
is the
got me the
point,
most.
but Oh,
That's true. They probably want that. Yeah, no, that house was very terrifying for a lot of reasons.
Oh my God, the
But
2 girls sitting in the corner in that pen. I
oh
thought they were
yeah,
gonna jump out at me at any. Oh, anyway, continue. Oh my God.
and the demons. Yeah, no, that house was it was a very good house. I only did it 4 times. I actually only thought I was going to do it once, but I gave it a couple other chances with some noise canceling headphones and a dream. I always use earplugs, but earplugs were not enough for my phobia. So I apologize to the demon girly that did the vomiting scene in that house, that I would speed past you and literally cover my eyes and not look at you. So
Do you really
sorry.
apologize though?
No, I'm it's not their fault that Universal made them do that. So maybe a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, that house was never going to go higher than 10, but you know, it's a great house though, and I'm glad that other people liked it. My number 9 house was Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Sound familiar to Bella's? But
Extremely.
yes. So maybe because it's the same. But that house is another one that is much like Exorcist, a gorgeous house that a lot of people really enjoyed. Also a very scary house. My biggest thing with that house, and I will say that Unmasking the Horror Tour almost made this go up higher on my list, but I just couldn't pick anything for it to go above. But gosh, that house is just so pretty, especially with the lights on when they were explaining everything and getting to see all the details. I have some great photos in that house. I actually took a selfie with, there's a guy in there that it's actually hard to see at night if you're not looking for it, but he's got like a cornucopia of like vegetables shoved in him, which is fun. Like I didn't notice that the first run. And so I took a selfie with him, like with like all excited. And an older woman that was there was like, wow, your parents must be so proud. And I was like, they are, thank you. And I told my parents that, and they were like, of course we're proud. How dare they? We love our spooky daughter. But great house, like overall, but it's another thing where it's just not necessarily a type of house that I relate to. Like the cult, like ritualistic type houses are not even like religious houses, which this is kind of, it's I don't know, like following some kind of deity sort of thing, you know. That kind of stuff is just not usually my jam for a house. Just don't really relate to it or feel like, oh, this really scares me or this really grabs me. But the scare actors were relentless and fantastic in that as well. There is not a single house on this list where I would say, the scares actors weren't that good though. Like they were great in all of them. So, you know, I'll probably say that every time, but it's a given if I don't say it about the house. The scare actors were brilliant. So it's 9, but I feel bad putting it at 9. Like that house is incredible.
No, same. Like everyone loves it. And I'm like,
it's just maybe in another year it would have been a lot higher.
I got too much religious trauma for that stuff. I can't. It was a lot.
And I'm like, bring it on.
I love that. I don't have any trauma or anything. It's just, I don't know, cults. I'm like, all right, live. Yeah, blood moon. I don't know. I guess I'm the false-hearted. I'm the non-believer over here.
Lest we all die.
They killed mommy and daddy.
Also, I will say I didn't see anyone talk about this. I didn't love the way they did the lighting for the triggers where it was like flashing red. I felt like it kind of brought me out of it. Like it's very unrealistic, if that makes sense.
No, I get it.
I know that that's probably an unpopular opinion, or maybe some people don't really think about it, but usually it's just like a bright light or darkness. I don't know. I didn't love the red flashing lights. I feel like that kind of brought me out of it and made it less scary to me. But that's just a personal preference that I wouldn't have known I had before this house. So I don't know. Apparently I have preferences on trigger lightings. But anyway, number 8, yet again, with the similarities, is The Last of Us.
Wow.
I know. Oh, I didn't say how many times I did Blood Moon. I did Blood Moon 7 times. The Last of Us I did 8 times, which is actually surprising to me that I did it so many times because it's I had Express, but even with Express, it's like the lines were so long. I think part of the reason that this, I'm not sure what maybe it could have gone above my number 7 if the queue was better, but so I don't think that was a huge detriment to it as a house, because I tried not to include any of that. If we were including like walks to the houses, one of my higher up houses would be way lower. We'll get there later, but so I try not to include that as part of it, but it is the reason I did this house less often. The main reason is just, even though I loved the show and I did watch the show, the game is not the type of game I would normally play as an Animal Crossing girly. That's not super good at like that kind of video game. Anything with shooting, I'm not going to be good at. So, and just like the way that game is played out is not my type of game, but I think the story is really interesting. I like the characters a lot. I thought the house was really cool. I wish that there was more Joel and Ellie, because that was what I really liked. Like, I think the Hollywood house looked really, really cool. I watched the video of that and I was like, oh man, that's amazing. Like, I loved their intro scene there, and that they had a lot of them throughout. The clickers were great, and all like the bloaters and everything like that. They were very scary, but I felt like, to me, it was a little repetitive as someone who's not super familiar with like the games. Like, yes, I've seen the show, but I feel like, because I'm not paying attention to all the like specific details, I'm like, oh, it's like a fungus covered person like jumping out at me. All right. Again, the scare actors were great. I'll probably say that for all of these, but it was just like, I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite. It's another thing too. Apocalypse vibes, not always my vibe either for house. So I feel like that was the main detriment for my bottom 3, is just it had nothing to do with the sets, the scare actors, or anything like that. It was just maybe not my type of genre for any of those. My number 7 is Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. This went back and forth at 6 or 7 for me. I wonder what my number 6 is. But number 7 was Dueling Dragons. I had this at number 1 on my hype list, so I was surprised that it was so low for me. I can't give any really exact reasons. It's a gorgeous house. It just, everything above it was better for me. Like, I liked them more. I went through this house actually a lot. It is tied for my second most run house. So I went through it 14 times. Main reason is because I did a lot of staying and screaming in New York, and it would have a really short wait in the beginning because everyone was running to Stranger Things. So it had like a 5-minute wait, 10-minute wait for the first 30 minutes that it was available. So I would just keep running it. So that's one of the reasons it has the most runs, but it's also a really gorgeous house. There's a lot of different ending options. I did the ice side a lot more than the fire side. I would kind of just go through whichever side the people in front of me weren't, so I could have a little small bit of, wow, I'm the only one in this house sort of moment. But it was really cool. I also wish there was more like actual dragons. Like, I get that it was focused on the warlocks. I think they did a good job with like the dragon arm and the dragons at the end. But I feel like the dragons are the coolest part. I wish like the ones at the end like were big giant puppets that moved or something like that would have been really cool. So that's my biggest complaint, is that I wish there was more with the dragons. And there were also times where this one would get a little, like, maybe there weren't as many scare actors as some of the other houses have, whether that's, by design, or sometimes there were parts that were pretty empty. I know that staffing has to do with that. It's not necessarily always, anyone's fault or anything like that, but there were just a couple things with this house that I really couldn't put it higher than some of the other ones, but I did enjoy it a lot. Of course, my number 6 is Chucky Ultimate Kill Count. If you were paying attention, that we had the same 10. I love Chucky. I always say on this podcast that I'm Chucky's number 1 fan. You might say, then Kelly, why is this not higher on your list? It's because the top 5 were just so good. Honestly, it probably could have flipped with 5 for me. But I don't know. It's really fun. I wish that we got more like how Hollywood's was again. That these are the only 2 houses that I feel that way, was Chucky and The Last of Us. But the Chucky house in Hollywood kind of went a little more in depth with like the show stuff. Like, I wish it was more focused on some of the stuff from the show. They did have scenes, but it was kind of like the concept of the way they did it was interesting, where it's kind of an eclectic mess, and it's my beautiful eclectic mess. I loved that eclectic mess. And I loved the way they did it in between the two halves of the house. If you haven't done it, the Fast and Furious house area has like basically two houses into it. Last year it was separated into two Blumhouse properties. This year it's kind of like a first half and second half of the Chucky house. I don't know. I just feel like there was more that I wanted from it, but I did love it. And I loved seeing good old Charles Lee Ray. The unmasking the horror for this house was also awesome. I do want to talk more about that maybe on the Patreon at some point, because I think that all of you should do, including my co-hosts, unmasking the horror next year, because it is a really, really cool tour. I want to do both of them next year, the 6 and the 3 house, because I missed, I really wish I would have done the other 3 houses, but it just wasn't in the cards this year. And I didn't even know. I did know I would like it, but I was like, oh, I've never done this. I guess I should, see if I like unmasking the horror before I go all in. And I loved it. So now I want to do both tours every single year if I can. But anyway, I don't have much else to say about it except that it was a beautiful callback to the Chucky movies. I feel like it could have been done a little bit more cohesively, but it was a very fun little mess. And I love seeing that little guy a billion times over and over again. The puppet in the first room was phenomenal and beautiful. Actually, on Unmasking the Horror, they had his head covered and it was like, do not touch. And you weren't able to like see him during that tour because they were like, this is like our pride and joy. We do not want it to get ruined. Unmasking the Horror, you're not allowed to take pictures or anything in that room, but they were like, just in case, we don't want anything to happen to this guy. He's the star of the show. So he was brilliant and beautiful. And if you haven't seen it, go check it out on YouTube, because that opening room is just incredible. But the concept was meta. And I feel like if you don't understand the concept, it would have been a really odd house. And it still was an odd house. But, I liked it. I thought it was fun.
Oh, man, this is so hard. Wow, what a great year. Why is the year so good? Okay. I'm glad it's so good. I'm not complaining that there's quality in the water. This is a year where I think every house is like 7 out of 10 or higher, 8 out of 10 or higher. Like it's too good. And even if something's like at the bottom of my list, and yeah, it's a list, so there's gonna be things at the bottom of the list, but like when I'm like number 10 is this, it doesn't mean I hated it. It's not like a 2 out of 10, because I think each house has its very specific strength and things that it really like latched on to me. So it's hard. These were jumping all over the place. I just pulled up on an Excel sheet, like, okay, how did I start out the year ranking these and how did I end the year ranking these? And some of them are like in the same zone, some are completely flipped. It's so tough. Okay. My number 10, you haven't heard this one before. Stranger Things 4 with 6 runs. I think it adapted this intensely long season extremely well. Like the adaptation was just spot on by focusing on Vecna and dropping, a lot of the Will and Mike and the Hopper and Joyce. They're key parts of that season. Don't get me wrong. I love a lot about Stranger Things 4 is my favorite season of the show. I loved it. Love it. And I think using Vecna, you start with Chrissy wake up, and then you go into the introduction of Vecna, and you go into his backstory and then his lair and all of that, and kind of following him through. I thought that was a really great way to tell this story. There's some really cool special effects in here. I loved how they projected onto one in the Rainbow Room. Like that was such a cool effect. And I don't think there's a little bit of it in Darkest Steel, but I think I didn't see it like they did it here. I think it was a huge step up from Stranger Things 2.
And that's where you're going to end. So what's your number 9?
It was just one of those houses. I still want to keep on praising it though, but like it was so much better.
Yeah, you should keep on praising it,
because Stranger Things 2 like had all these mannequins. There's great atmosphere, but I really was not immersed in the atmosphere because of the scares that they chose for it and the non-scares with a lot of just still scenes. With this, I think all the scare actors were great. I enjoyed the interactions that were there with them. I just never found it that scary for me. And I think the Vecna lair it felt too bare. It was huge. It's supposed to be overwhelming, but it just felt like a big soundstage space.
I agree with that.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it was going to be this controversial, and
obviously it was going to be this controversial.
Controversial with you, Bella. I just mean on the whole. But now I'm thinking, I'm looking at my 10 and my 9. I'm like, oh dear God.
Yeah, now I'm really confused and scared.
Yeah.
Adam's staying with the most controversial list.
No, literally, like, what is wrong? Adam,
when you hear my 9 through 1, I think it'll make a lot more sense.
I don't think so. Adam is officially off the podcast. It is now the Pisces Park Workshop. So Kelly, what's your number 5?
You don't want to ask me that. Keep going, Adam.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no! Better than 10.
Yeah, that's true. It's just one of those houses where I think I didn't have the best runs. It's not the cast; it's just the nature of Horror Nights and the Congo.
So it's a you problem.
Yeah, it's a me problem. I didn't time it right. But I mean, I loved Robin in the house. I loved. Oh, this is a huge thing. This is a huge thing with the house. The adaptation was number 1, but number 2 is just that feeling of apocalypse at the end when, like, after Flambe, like you get the whole fracturing of Hawkins, and you feel that sense of dread and like, oh, everything has hit the fan and we can't fix it feeling. There's death happening, there is destruction happening, and things are really bad. And I was really surprised they were able to fit that feeling into the end of a 3-4 minute house. Like, that's why I'm like, it's not a bad house at all. It's just one I didn't want to wait for. Because I love the other 9 so much more. It's not a bad house. It's not a bad house. It's a really well done house. I just wish I was scarier. I did have one terrifying run, though. That was really cool.
I love that it wasn't scary, though. But that's just me. More on that later.
Hey, I can't wait to hear it. My number 9, we haven't heard this one either. At 7 runs. So before I say it, because I feel like, oh, okay, yeah, Kelly knows. So at 7 runs, it was a house I didn't have a great first impression in. I missed every scare. And so this house was just constantly working its way up to me. And there's also a factor of what my expectations were going in and then what the house was actually doing. So I had to reset my take the house on its terms. And in the end, I really did appreciate it, really did enjoy it. I love hearing how this connected with all sorts of other people. With 7 runs, my number 9 is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. I love an icon house. I love a lore house. But I think part of it, and I know someone who was in the cast, and she was great. And this cast was fantastic. There are memorable triggers. Like, I really, really did enjoy this. But with Twisted Origins, I think part of it, again, it's a me thing. I was expecting a super narrative heavy. Yeah, well, yeah.
This is going to be the worst cancellation of 2023. Move over whoever got canceled this year. Adam Johnson is taking it. Yeah. Ooh.
But, yeah, so what I thought this house was going to be, I thought it was going to be super lore heavy, and it was going to tell us a heavy narrative, kind of like Case Files or Tooth Fairy or Bride of Frankenstein Lives. And that's what I love in a house. I love a heavy lore, heavy story, narrative-based thing. And it's not that it's not there, it's just very much in the background, because what the house is, it's immersing you into the story. You're going in as a patron who was doomed from the start. You think you're seeing a circus, and your soul is being distorted for Oddfellow's pleasures. And what that equates to is a lot of oddities jumping out at you, and it feels chaotic, and that's the point. But I'm like, but where's the story that I heard about and everything? And it's not the house's fault, because it does really well at immersing you into all of that. It's just a house that I emotionally didn't connect to as much as the my top 6. So that's why it's at my number 9. But it really was a well-done house. I made sure to do plenty of runs towards the end there, because I'm like, I'm really going to regret if I don't walk away with a good feeling, a great feeling, or like really took the time to learn this house for what it was and everything. So that's why it's at my number 9. It was really good. I love Oddfellow. Okay, I love Oddfellow. And someone on Twitter was saying how this house did a really great job of presenting. This isn't the Oddfellow show. He's the circus master and everything, but it really is about the other oddities. And there's some fantastic scenes, like the chopped head bit. Like, I didn't realize, like, a hand removes the head when the decapitated body moves towards you. I didn't catch that.
I didn't notice there was a head until my last run in that house.
Yeah. I loved the other decapitated head with the ta-da, and you're going around and this one circus performer is just twisting a body like more and more. Like how much more can that twist? It's like a reverse contortionist. I love seeing the kitty. I love seeing the lion jump out because I know that's a Choopy puppet deep down. A little American Werewolf puppet deep down. And then the goat man goats scare me a lot this year. That's kind of a running theme is goats. I love seeing Jack in the Shadows. I love seeing Oddfellow in the shadow. I love seeing Oddfellow throughout the house. Like it's a great house. It just was my number 9. But again, 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10. It's like it was all the houses were great. This just happened to be like not my favorite Oddfellow story because I love the zone so much. And I think I don't know, maybe that was part of it. I don't know. I'm gonna stop talking and go into my go ahead, Kelly.
I know you will not say number 8 is one we haven't heard, because if you say that, Adam, you're definitely canceled. Are you gonna say that?
No.
Number 8 is a house I did 9 times. And I've often called it the Transformers The Ride 3D of the event. It's Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate.
Okay.
Uncanceled.
Yeah. Yay, I survived.
Not uncanceled. Not uncanceled.
Oh, wait till you hear the rest.
Not further canceled yet.
No.
Nothing's going to beat your number 10, though.
I know. So Dueling Dragons, I was missing this roller coaster this year. I think I said it on our hype episode on the Patreon. I was missing this roller coaster, but what I realized going through this house, I didn't do it when it was Dueling Dragons. I didn't have that nostalgia for the lore. I think there's an interactivity to the storyline that I don't think was as prevalent in the house, because you're in these stories, in these attractions, you're very passive. You're walking through things, but the storyline is you must find the book and save the kingdom. But I love seeing the Enchanted Oak. I love the forest fight at the beginning. I'm like, dang, they are going hard. They're going hard with this. With the fairy and the dragon people. I love the body horror of the transformation, and like that was really cool to see. The skeletons always scared me. I love choosing my fate. I got all the endings, even the secret 3rd ending or secret 5th ending, which was not official, but I hated it when Merlin won. It felt so dorky. And not in the best way for me. I know it fits with the whole like fantasy vibe, like you've saved the kingdom, come celebrate with us. But Merlin won, but he didn't hit his trigger, and I'm like, are you really gonna leave me hanging here, brah? And so he just did in the shadows a booga booga, and I'm like that works for me. That works for me. But when Pyrock won in my last run, I screamed like a feral beast because I was so hyped that Merlin had died.
I will say I didn't touch on this when I was talking about this, but I much prefer the losing to the winning. I thought it was so much more fun to see the decapitated Merlin head. Like, I was like, yeah, you go, Warlocks.
See, I would literally dance with Merlin, so I loved it when Merlin won.
Nah, I craved violence. Carnage.
Same.
It was very pretty too. Like my last run or two of it, I'm like, okay, God, you're beautiful. Like it's like that scene from A Star Is Born. Where are you going? Like, why are you just standing there? I just want to take one last look at you. That was me with Dueling Dragons. That was the fate I chose, was admiration. Yeah, I really came to enjoy this, and I say it's the Transformers The Ride 3D of the event because it's just rewritable. It's so redoable, and not just because it's got the secret endings, but it's just plain fun. And that's good. Well, okay, for me, that's what
Transformers have secret endings?
No, but it's just plain
okay.
fun.
I was like, what? I understand.
Secret ending is when the ride
analogy.
breaks down and you are not a freedom fighter and you did not save the planet.
Oh no! Oh
when
no!
the elevator shaft breaks, that's when that's the secret ending. Yeah, but I really did enjoy it. I do wish I got to do it more, but it's also like I wish I went more, and I went a lot. It's just like, you don't have time. It's not enough time. Oh, I do want to say this before I move on to my number 7, is I really hope that this, I know we were talking about like we hope that they bring back old rides as Horror Nights houses where it fits. Mark James 2024. Come on, Mark James house. That's a horror makeup show reference for all those listening. Poseidon's Fury would be great. I want to see the history of the Dark One and Darkenon. But because we lost Poseidon's Fury and lost Continents without an attraction right now, besides the Mystic Fountain and the Mythos, I guess you could count as an attraction because it's just that good. I hope that they gut Poseidon's Fury and put this house in it, add that interactive element that was missing from the house. I would do that so much, and not just because I love walkthroughs. I would enjoy that so much. I don't know if they will, because it had unusually low wait times for what I think was pitched as the Deadman's Pier of the year. But I would do this so many more times if it were a perma-haunt, a permanent attraction. I'm sure it's not that expensive to do over and relocate.
I actually think that would be an awesome perma-haunt, because it's one of those ones like when they did the original Stranger Things during the day for a little bit, where it's not as scary as some of the other houses, so it's kind of a good one.
I'm gonna need you to repeat that for me.
It's not that scary.
No. You know what I want you to repeat.
Yeah, the original Stranger Things house for, I don't know if it was a weekend or if it was a little longer, but they had it open.
It's the anniversary of today's Stranger Things Day, Election Day, 28.
Oh wait, yeah,
that's right.
Me saying as if I went that year, and I'm like shocked at finding out this information. I forgot about that.
Yeah, they had it as a daytime haunt for a little bit. Yeah.
They should have kept on. They should have done that this year.
I know.
I would have stayed a few extra days in Orlando. Bro.
They should have had it open today. I would have been there.
I would have been there in a heartbeat.
But yeah, I think that Dueling Dragons was a good, it wasn't super, super scary. I think that'd be a good perma-haunt that they could have where day guests could kind of figure out whether or not they liked it, or like kids could, still do it. I mean, it's still scary, but even if they made some adjustments to it, it was one of the less gory and violent ones. There was a couple things, but they could even take some of that out and make it, less. I mean, some of the stuff was taken directly from the original queue, maybe not the exact same props, but the hanging skeletons and stuff were in the original queue. So, I mean, they used to have it open during the day. I think that'd be sweet.
I thought it was the least scariest of the year. I thought Stranger Things was a little bit scarier, but most people are familiar with that franchise, so it automatically isn't going to be scary because you just know it. So, Dragons, I feel like would be a really good perma-haunt in some way, shape, or form, especially in that building because it's already shaped and built as a walkthrough. Mm-hmm. So, wouldn't really have to do a whole lot, and I think it would look sick in there. Really? Oh my god, it'd be sick. But
it doesn't match the theming, but I'll take it.
No, but they can figure that out.
You walk through the Poseidon's Fury, the temple has unlocked a new portal to the realm.
Pyrock and Blizzrock, wherever they live.
Just call us, okay? We'll give you all the ideas.
No, literally. Universal Creative, Horror Nights Creative. Give me a call. I follow you on all social media platforms. Not hard to get in contact with me. Let's do this thing.
Let's do it. Also, shout out to Pyrock in the first book room. You were so good with all sorts of guests. I know whenever I saw wheelchairs go through, you always made sure that they got the full scare and spent extra time with them. And I thought that was so cool to see. I know a lot of scare actors do that, but I know I really saw that with Pyrock in that book room. And also shout out Pyrock Claw. You're my fave. I told you that every time. I loved when you just swiped. Okay, so we're getting into the big leagues, which is the 6 and 7, because they're really tied with my 3 through 7 are all ties. It is so freaking hard to parse this stuff out, and really it comes down to what am I going to keep on remembering? What memories did I have, going through it? What really, it's like the slightest things, because where one is strong, the other maybe not doesn't have that, but it really knocks out of the park with this other thing. And so it's very difficult. But my number 7 with 5 runs is a house I didn't do as much. Also because not everyone I went with wanted to do it again, not just you guys, but other folks too. But I thought it was the second scariest house at the event. And I thought that it told its story really well, and that was The Exorcist Believer. That's my number 7, but I could put it higher, except I feel really bad putting the other things lower, but I also feel really bad putting it at number 7 because I thought it was really good. It blew my expectations. We made jokes about how no one's looking forward to this house. If you go back to our prep episode, we had crickets. I put a TikTok on the TikTok and just cheering for every house because I'm so excited for it. And then Exorcist, and people roasted me in the comments. This guy did not just say to the Exorcist, and then the Exorcist heard that and they said we were going to invite trauma. It was intense, and I think they, instead of having a legacy house this year, they took all the lessons that they've taken from the legacy houses and applied it to something we had never seen, The Exorcist Believer. What did I love about it? I love the demon design. I thought Lamashtu, I think is her name. It was one of the coolest creature designs I've seen in the entire event. I love that design. She was scary, and she was really cool to see. I thought the Exorcist girlies, the little demon girls, I thought that they were really terrifying. They really killed it. I thought the story was really clear, and even though the smell wasn't great, I thought that it was just really effective. It was effective, and it was really easy to understand and get immersed into the storyline, even though it's very different from, well, it's not very different, but it's different enough from the film that there are some like significant variations, not just differences, variations in how it's told. Number 7, you're tied with number 3. Like, you're that good. My number 6, Chucky, Ultimate Kill Count. I'm a recent Chucky convert because they announced it last year, and I'm like, there's a lot to go, and Kelly's like, Chucky is the best, and so I
was
had
about to say, and because of me.
yes, but no, it really is. I've really come to appreciate the series. Love the campy ones, Seed of Chucky, Cult of Chucky. I haven't finished season 2 yet, but I'm enjoying that. I'm just a very slow binge watcher, which is when they do TV shows based on houses, or houses based on TV shows, I cry inside because I'm never going to catch up. But no, this was so much fun. I think it's lower on my list because the meta narrative of it was kind of hard to parse out, because there's the one narrative, Chucky is possessing the dolls. I possessed all the dolls, and he's also possessing.
Okay, Roz from Monsters Inc.
And he's possessing scare actors and all that. And that's the storyline, and all of it is to add you to his kill count by blowing you up. That's the primary narrative, but there's a meta narrative, which is what was the narrative of the house, and kind of parsing those two I think if you weren't familiar with the franchise at all, it would be hard to parse out. It was hard for me to parse out, even though I had seen most of it. Now on reruns, it got better and better. And I think towards halfway through the event, I think late September, they added Tiffany's doll. They added the big Chucky heads, and I think that just took the house to a whole nother level. Even just like that little extra fan service, Kyle from Child's Play 2, I saw her a lot more. I thought that having the guy, or the scare actor rather, in the middle sequence to actually fill in space and improv with you, I thought that was ingenious. It was so fun to go through. I never had a bad time in it. Super queer, like the show. Love that. Love the camp. Glenda Fluid. Yeah, no, it's just a great time. I really enjoyed this house, and it hurts because I really did love it. I really did enjoy it. I love what it did to honor the franchise. This was made by fans, and I believe it was for fans. I don't know what the heck people are talking about when they say this is the worst house they've ever done. I wouldn't say that about any house I've done this year, but I can think of plenty of houses that I have enjoyed less than Chucky, and I think I don't want to say they were done badly, but there are houses where I'm like, no, that was worse than Chucky. I don't know what you're talking about. I really dug this, and I'm sad that the cast didn't always feel that love, but I hope that they felt that love through the people who really did enjoy that house and went through multiple times. Someone came with a Chucky doll and brought it through the house, like, because he appreciated this house so much.
I saw that like almost every time I went through that house. There were so many people in line with Chucky dolls, and then like full cosplay. It was awesome.
And they had a full Q video for that. I appreciate that. I appreciate original media made for these haunts, including the Oddfellow loop, which has original radio recordings and not original songs, but they use standards of the time and all that. See the distortions. I love how that was integrated this year. Yeah, no, I really enjoyed Chucky. I enjoyed all these quote unquote bottom 5, but Chucky was wonderful. It was wonderful. Got the Legends Collide treatment where it really got a glow up halfway through, and I already enjoyed it the first time.
Yeah, I completely agree. It pained me to put this house at 6 because I just adored it so much, and the cast was incredible. And I agree that there's not a single house this year, and that includes The Exorcist, that I would put probably even in my bottom 5 of houses I've ever done. I mean, and I have my own personal gripes that I talked about with The Exorcist, but I still thought it was an incredible house, even as someone who will probably never watch any of those movies. I do want to read the book because that's totally different.
Good.
And I'll probably watch the first movie eventually. We'll see if I ever watch Believer. But the point is, like, as someone who didn't even super relate to some of my bottom houses here, they were still incredible houses. This was such a strong year. So putting Chucky at 6 was painful, but I just have so many things to say about my top 5 and especially my top 3, that my top 3 like could easily be 3 of the best houses I've ever done, you know, and even the top 5, they're just so good. So yeah, this year is really solid, and putting anything, you know, below like 1 or 2 is painful.
Yeah.
No, literally, this year was just, this is my favorite year I've done of Horror Nights out of the 3 that I've done. And it was just like, my top, like, those bottom 5 are like, even Blood Moon and Exorcist. Loved that. Like, they were fantastic houses, very intense, very good. But my top 5. I love my top 5. My 5 and then 3. Okay.
Them. 5 and 4.
5
and 3? Oh,
and
5
3.
through 3. Sorry.
5 through 3. So, at number 5, I have Dr. Oddfellow. I loved that house. I did that house. How many times? I did that house 7 times. I wish I did it more. I just thought it was so fun. And I'm not a big clown girly, but I loved how silly and goofy, and like I loved their triggers, and like just I loved it, and I loved how it looked, and I love Dr. Oddfellow. I think he's so cool, like I said earlier. And like loved all the Jack Easter eggs, and well, it's not even technically in the house, but my favorite I did this every time I went through that house. There was a little sign on the door as you're walking into that hallway. It just said hot dogs, and I'd scream at it every time. And it was my favorite thing. And I teared up a little bit screaming at hot dogs for the last time. Like that. I loved that. And like it was just so good. And this one, it was pretty high on my hype list. It was at number 3. And it definitely lived up to those expectations. I liked every, like, 5 through 1 or 4 through 1 are like, it was so hard to rank this year. And like, it hasn't really been like that the last 2 years I've gone. Like, it was very clear. But this year, like, I just can't stop saying it. This year was insane. I just thought the house was fun. It was very cool. And it just, I loved the creatures. I loved it. I miss the house. I loved the line outside in the front. Striking acts of distortion. I loved it. That's really all I can say. I loved it. Not much else. And then at number 4, I have Universal Monsters, Unmasked. I loved Brides. Did not like Legends Collide. I thought it was boring. I only did it twice. I thought it was boring. I'm sorry, Adam. I just killed him. You killed me with your Stranger Things ranking, so...
We kill each other.
Yeah.
I would die for you.
But I loved this house. I do have a couple...
Legends Collide. How far down did you rank that? I think it's my number 2.
Let me actually double check that.
I'm just curious because I don't remember you hating that.
It was at number 6.
Oh.
So really not that
bad, but still, how dare you?
And I did this house 7 times as well.
I think it was Wit on Twitter. I can't think of her full. Is it Twisted Wit?
I think so.
It was, but her thing is Jedi Wit 2.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right. Jedi Wit 2. She tweeted the other day and said, "Make a bad monsters house challenge for Universal, level impossible," because they've all been phenomenal.
No, Legends was good. Not my cup of tea, but it's fine. But like this house, it was
Fair
for
enough.
the theater kid girlies and everyone. Like it was so good. I loved that. I know you loved that first room, Kelly, with the officer, whatever. And I loved the
I
rain
loved the guard.
and the guard. It was just such a beautiful house. You know, extra. We'd all about it. Iconic, legendary. I loved the Phantom. I was telling Adam and Kelly this earlier, but my last run in that house, I was giving heart hands to everyone, and the Phantom in the stair, so the second Phantom, he came and completed my hand heart, and I almost cried. I did cry a little bit. It was just, I had the best time in that house. It was so intense. It was very scary. The sets were gorgeous. The music was gorgeous. I loved that group of monsters. I think it was very fun. I do wish there was less Phantom and there was more Quasimodo, more Invisible Man, more Jekyll and Hyde. Like there was only 2, I guess 3 with the last one. Like, and I honestly couldn't tell you that was Jekyll and Hyde when I first did the house. Also, here to report, the horse was back this weekend. The horse has returned.
I have inside information on the horse because I did the Unmasking the Horror tour. What happened was guests and Hyde both kept tripping on the horse because they couldn't see it. So they originally removed the horse completely, which was cool because it gave Hyde more time, like he could come out more. But then I don't know the exact reason, but they decided that it felt too empty or something and they wanted to bring it back. So they just made sure it was back farther. The only downside was that Hyde wasn't able to jump out as much, but or at least as far. But yeah. Anyway, that's why people kept tripping and getting hurt on the horse.
Interesting. Yeah, no, I wish there was more of him. I wish there was less Phantom. I feel like in the Phantom sections there was just a lot of curtain, which like is fine, like he's in a theater, but I was like, come on, you guys, like what are we doing? But honestly, really not that big of a deal because that house was just gorgeous and I loved it and it was so much fun and I wish I did it more. And then my number three is Yeti Campground Kills. And I did that house 11 times. And that one was number 9 on my hype list preseason because I was so scared of that house. I was so nervous. I absolutely fell in love with this house. It was very intense, very scary, but very funny. Like I loved it. And it had my favorite trigger line of the entire event. What the hell are those things? And I tried all season to time it right so I could say that line with him. And on the second to last night, my friend and I, we were the only 2 people in that house. And he had just like pressed the trigger or something because I heard it. And I stood in front of his window and I waited for him to do it. And we did it together. And he was smiling so big. I'm crying. And then I go again. I go and do it one more time the last night. And it's the same actor. And it worked out perfectly. And I got to do it. And oh my God. It was just the best. I absolutely adored that house. The bear, HHM Bear, loved dancing with him. Our icon, our legend, our king, period. Legendary. I'm so glad that I wasn't so scared of it because everyone said I was going to hate it because the 2019 one was scary and I would have hated that. And I just, the mirrors in there always got me. It was just, and going through it, just as like the only people in it was one of the coolest things ever. That's only ever happened. Well, I guess Exorcist, that happened. Terrifying. And then that happened to my friend and I in puppet theater. And that was awesome. I love runs when you're the only one in there. It's just, that's just how I feel like I can't even talk about these houses, like my top houses, because I just love them so much. And, I miss it. I wish that was like a permanent one because I loved it so much. Yeah.
It was House of the Year.
What are y'all's? It was House of the Year, period, as it should, absolutely
As it should.
Deserved.
Amen.
Oh
As
yeah,
it
and
should.
Vamp 69 was Street of the Year. I don't think we touched on that.
As it should. They
As it
well
should.
deserved for
No,
both.
Yeah.
both deserved it so much.
No, it was
Completely.
just
Yeah.
I want there to always be a Yeti house because I love those silly little outfits. They're so cute. I love when I'd accidentally make eye contact with the scare actor because of the eye holes on the forehead. I'd always make eye contact with them, and it was so funny. Yeah, that house, man.
Well, my number 5 is Stranger Things 4. Sorry, Bella. It's a great house. Bella just left the chat. Not literally. But she turned her camera off because she's done with me. No, it was a great house. It is also my favorite season of Stranger Things. All of the things that Adam said about how great it is. I do love that they went with the Vecna storyline, even though I would have liked to see Hopper again because him and I were besties in the first Stranger Things house, but it's fine. But I don't know. I think part of the problem for me is that it wasn't a super scary house, which I know that people have opinions on that, as to like whether or not that's a good thing or whether or not that's necessary. I don't think that every like house needs to be absolutely terrifying. But I didn't really get very many good scares, although one of my favorite scares that I got the whole event, there was a lot of space between me and the person in front of me, and there also wasn't a lot of space with the people behind me either. And it was what is his name? You guys know which one I'm talking about, the jock guy. Jason. Yeah, Jason. He sucks in the show. But so I forgot his name.
That's why he was ripped in two in the next room.
Period. But Jason, Chrissy's boyfriend, he comes out and he yells, "Back up." But he usually and he got me every single time. For some reason, the timing, every single time he scared me. And he gets in your face. But this time, because there was so much space between us, he walked out like several feet right in front of me. We're like halfway through the room. There should not have been room to do that, but there was so much space both ways that I like freaked out. I like backed up because I could, because there was no one behind me. I was horrified. It was so scary. And he's just a dude. Like, it was just scary. But it was awesome. So I loved that. The demo bat room where they're fighting the demo bats was amazing, of course. The first time I walked in there, my jaw dropped. Vecna looked very cool. I do think the dream sequence running up that hill room was, I wish they played the song louder. Maybe that had to do with rights or something. And I wish that it was done like a little bit differently, just because I feel like it felt like you were in a sound stage in that room very much versus some of the other rooms. So I had some like gripes about it, but overall, I think it did a really great job. I loved the rainbow room scene that Adam was talking about where they project onto one and they have that whole fight sequence. But that was just a really fun house. The flambe scene was my favorite with Robin. That Vecna looks so cool. So I loved it, but it just wasn't my favorite. I don't know. And the Eddies are amazing. Eddie, if you're listening, I love you. Any of you, all of you, every cast. I saw Cast A the most because I usually would go and do Stay and Scream for New York and then use Express at that time, because even in like with Express, if it's a 120-minute wait, I was still waiting 20-30 minutes or more. So I tried to do that. If you go during Stay and Scream, nobody's using Express, so it was like, you know, less than a 5-minute wait, basically the walk to the front, which was awesome. So yeah, that's number 5, but just only because I love the ones above it more. Number 4 is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. Fantastic house. The scariest thing was the walk to the house, but not literally, because this house was scary too. The walk was awful, and that is, I didn't even say my runs for some of these. I did Stranger Things only 9 times, which is a lot, but I would have liked to do it more if it weren't for, you know, the line. Oddfellow was similar. I did it 11 times, which is still a lot actually, but the walk was just crazy. This house was great. I like circus houses. I always think they're fun because they're usually scary, but like there's a lot going on. Like they're not just dark or just, you know, one dimensional. They can do a lot of fun and interesting things with them, and they can get very creative. So there was a lot of scenes, like there's a dressing room scene where they added some scare actors halfway through the run that are very scary and in the darkness. And there's like so many scare actors in that room, and there's also really cool mirror effect with some dummies that is very fun. But just there's a lot of creative scares. I think somebody talked about how there's like the pants scare, like with like a moving pantsuit, which I think they kind of changed it at the end. They weren't doing that as much, so I'm not sure what happened with that. They just had like a guy with the head on top and he would do stuff. So they kind of changed that one. So if you didn't go the first few weeks, you might not have seen it in its full glory. But there's just a lot of cool stuff. Only hanging on by his teeth with the ta-da and the lion and the big scary thing after the lion. That's like I don't even know what that was.
Like
a minotaur?
A goat, but with a ballerina tutu.
Yeah.
I loved it.
It was fun. That was fun. So, and then of course Oddfellow's in it several times. And he was great as well. And they had a shout out to Jack a couple times. So yeah, that was just a really great house. I loved it. Honestly, I know why they didn't do it probably, but it would have been cool to see like one like Jack scare actor in there. Would have been fun. I know they kind of wanted to not focus on that, and that's probably why they did it that way, but that would have been kind of cool. But the ties to him were great as a longtime Horror Nights fan. So fantastic house. I loved it so much. My number 3 pains me to put it at number 3. It's been at 1 so many times. My top 3 have changed a lot. But my number 3 is Yeti Campground Kills. I loved it so much. I only put it at 3 because I just couldn't put it above my 1 and 2. But gosh, I loved that house. To me, actually, this probably scared me the second most out of any of the houses this year. Honestly, I know Exorcist and Blood Moon are considered the scariest houses. Those didn't scare me as much as some of the other houses. And maybe it's because I didn't do them as much, or maybe because they just weren't really as much of my jam. Yeti scared me so bad. I think it's just, they're big. I don't know. And they're scary. I loved it. It's funny because it's also the comedy house. And I had a friend go through it with me. And I was like, oh yeah, this is the comedy house. And we came out and she was like, what is wrong with you? That's not a comedy house. And I was like, but it is. And there's actually some fun details that people might not have noticed. I went on the Unmasking the Horror tour, as I've mentioned a bunch of times, because I loved it so much. One of the fun details is that one of the first rooms, there's I don't know if he's like a security guard or like like one of those camp people.
Park ranger.
A park ranger. That's what they're called. He's missing his left arm. And then in the next room, a Yeti pops out at you with an arm as a weapon, but the arm has a wedding band on it. So he was married. He got his arm ripped off. Just like silly details like that, or like the retirement party. The joke is that they're moving to Florida too. So there's a letter that you cannot read in the darkness on the table that's like, congrats on your party. Like, can't wait to see you down in Florida. You're going to love it there. The weather's so nice and all this stuff. Oh, watch out for, Yetis. Ha ha ha. And it's just like very like silly. And they had like plastic flamingos out there that were supposed to be like, oh, we're moving to Florida. Like just like the silliest stuff. Also, fun fact about that house, there are jackalopes hidden everywhere in that house, which are like the cryptid. And it looks like a bunny rabbit with like antelope ears. So there's a jackalope on the like map, sign thing. And then there's also like a couple of jackalopes like in the campsite. So it's just interesting. And our tour guide was like, oh, haha, we're doing a jackalope house next year. Confirmed. And then he was like, just kidding. Please don't tell anyone I said that. So I will not say who my tour guide was. And if you saw who my tour guide was, no, you didn't. So I don't think that's legit. But it was just kind of funny that it's like, why are there all these jackalopes here? I don't know, because they're cryptids. Maybe it's a reference to how like Yeti is actually like Bigfoot. It's like that whole thing. So anyway, fun house. I really loved it. It was great. It was a fantastic house. I don't even have anything else to say except that it was just so good. I loved What the Hell Are Those Things? He was my favorite. I would also always put my hands up like, I don't know, dog. Anytime I got that timing right on that. I loved the mom yelling, Billy. Also, Billy got what he deserved. Rest in peace, baby Yeti. So, don't torment the baby Yeti.
Did you know what the dead baby Yeti's name was?
No.
Renesmee.
Wow.
From Twilight.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
You name my Yeti after the Loch Ness Monster?
Oh my god.
Amazing. That's
That was
great.
perfect. That
That
was
house
so
was
good.
Also, the Yeti at the end, like after you leave the house, got me every single time. Horrifying. So good.
Oh man, I guess it's my turn. Oh Lord, this is the hardest. This is like the hardest section to do, guys. So remember what I said. 7 and 6 are tied with this tier. I think at one point every single one of these was either my top one or like fighting for it. So that's why I'm in agony. And I'm honestly my 4 and 3. I'm not going to know what they are until I say them. But my number 5, which for a while was my number 1, is The Last of Us. Enjoyed the show. I've never played the game. So I didn't get to play before the season ended, so I could fully appreciate the house, I guess. But nevertheless, this house made me buy a $70 game, so that's not nothing. I really enjoyed this house. I think part of it, even though I'm like, no, Merlin must die, and dragons, I'm like, no, Joel and Ellie, you gotta do it. You gotta get out of there. Even though they weren't in the house a whole lot, I was still really emotionally attached to these characters in this version, this house. I thought these scare actors, the 7 times I did it, also, I don't think I said it, 7 times I did for Chucky, but the 7 times I did The Last of Us, they always went like way beyond, which I didn't always experience in an IP house. Usually they felt kind of restricted. With The Last of Us, they were like traveling like half a mile to scare you out of their boo hole. I'm like, whoa, what's going on here? What the heck is going on here? But yeah, the clickers on fire, they got me all the time. They got me.
I got that.
I also understood that reference.
Oh my God. I love you for that. That's why you're on the podcast still, and I didn't kick you off after the Stranger Things thing.
Redemption.
We also didn't kick him off because there would be no podcast if we kicked Adam off because we don't know how to edit podcasts.
That's also true. That's very true.
Once they learn.
Oh, we're coming at him. We're gonna overtake you. You better watch out.
But even like in the sections where there weren't clickers, there are like some loud noises that were clicker-like that made me jump. I thought the bloater was really cool. I love the way that this house used levels. Like you were looking all up and down this house, and it was really effective. And Joel at the end shooting from the house, it looked very video game like, and I'm like, that's pretty neat. That's pretty cool. You look like a PS4 graphic there, bud. It was really cool how they did that. And I love, Ellie getting her F-bomb when Chucky didn't. That's fine. And I love seeing them in the house. I know a lot of old timers, people who've been going to this event a lot, are like, it's just another zombie house. I haven't done a zombie house, so it felt really cool to me. It was a slow start, but I thought that it climaxed really well. Like it really built up to a really exciting half and finale, that's the way you do it. You don't end on you're just trying to hold out this tension. I had that issue with one of the Halloween Scream houses this year, where it's like it's all tension and it never really pays off. With Last of Us, I thought it really did pay off. So even though I hated the weight broke me one time. Yeah, no, it's just a really solid house, and every time I went through, I'm like, man, they actually did that. So it was my number 1 for like weeks, and now it's at my number 5 because I just really came to appreciate the other 4 more. I know what you're talking about, Kelly. I know what I said, and I wish I didn't say it, but I did. Can I put this at my number 4? I don't want to say
what I think it is. No, you can't.
If it's what I think, has it been mentioned?
Well, you guys have done pretty much up to your 1 and 2, so.
If it hasn't been mentioned, then
we've
no,
mentioned
you
every
can't.
house.
No, we haven't.
Yeah, we have.
No,
Bella and I have the same number 2.
We do.
We've mentioned every house except for 1, and that's not my number 4. But it's
okay.
Oh, thank God!
I don't want to say it because it puts it in stone. But okay,
say it, coward.
So as I look back at all the Halloween Horror Nights houses I've done over the years, what I think about is what am I going to remember? What's going to stick with me? And that's why my 3 and 4 are so different. Oh man, I hate this. My number 4 is Universal Monsters Unmasked.
I knew it. When I saw the turmoil, I realized it wasn't.
Way.
Okay.
No way.
It hurts.
This is crazy.
I know it's crazy, Bella.
I can see you canceling yourself in real time.
No, I am.
This is crazy.
Yeah. This is the most fluid spot in my.
What happened?
Nothing. It was just a great house. Okay, so I'll talk about why my 3 through 1 are my 3 through 1s right now. And honestly, after I get done saying my 3, I might say JK. That's how unsure I am. I changed it today. I changed it yesterday. I changed it tomorrow. But Universal Monsters Unmasked, I love my monsters. I love my monsters so much. They're my favorite horror franchise. You know this. This house was it was the house I did the most at 12 runs. It was the last house I did of the event because I love it so much. It's so redoable. It's so solid. A Monsters House is always my favorite cast. Always my favorite cast. Because they capture these monsters and their spirit and what this franchise means so incredibly well. I love Monsters Houses. It's probably my least favorite. I mean, given where it's ranked, it's my least favorite of the 4 Monsters Houses that they've done of the series. Like that first Monsters House, it's the very first house I did. It's the reason I went to Horror Nights in the first place. You really can't beat that. I love 2019 Monsters. Bride of Frankenstein Lives, the story of that house, is my favorite theme park attraction story of all time. And it's my favorite maze of all time. I really love that house. I'll have to do a mini pod on it because of what that house means. But Legends Collide, like, it started low, but then it was the scariest house for me that year, and it really hit well, and it was scary, and I thought the revisions that they did to it really made it great, and I remembered every scare. Like, I could still, even though it was like over a year ago now, I could still remember like every scene from that. And Unmasked, while I just saw Phantom 1925 this year. It is incredible. If you haven't seen Phantom of the Opera 1925, find it on Canopy, find it on Hoopla. It's probably on YouTube. Watch it on Prime. Find a place to watch it and watch it. It is an incredible film, and I think they really honored that spirit. The Constable was great. The rainfall was great. I love seeing the moon from Legends Collide again. It was awesome. Hyde came for blood in the last half of the event. He became the scariest part of it for me. Quasimodo falling from the bell tower. That was so cool to see. And Invisible Man. I love Invisible Man in this house. He only has like 2 or 3 scenes. Well, 4 if you count the intro, the cold open with the constable. You can hear him. You can't see him, but yeah, the fingers around your throat, like, perfect. So he's the same gremlin that he is in the movie, and I love that. And I love the way he ran in like a Scooby-Doo character, like Shaggy, and in the very final scare of the maze. You earn it, Griffin. And it's just like, I think with this, there was that dead space that you're talking about, Bella, with the curtains, and it's like, if that was filled, but it was still so it was still so fun. You know, I always walked out satisfied from that house. And I think the story was harder to explain. The story was harder to justify. Like, when I was taking Fred's through, like, the monster just showed up in Paris one day. That's kind of it. Things happen, and things happen in a way that makes sense, but there's not really a story to it. I think that was kind of the thing that put it lower in my monsters rankings and in this year's rankings, because even though it was an incredible house and a house that I loved, I like the other 3 better for other reasons. So I loved it, and it pains me to put it at 4 because I did love it. My number 3 is Blood Moon Dark Offerings at 9 runs. This was kind of my Roman Empire of the event.
Bye.
So here's why it's my number 3 and why I love this house so much. I really did love this house. I know a lot of people are like, it was terrifying, it got under my skin. It really didn't do that for me. I think it's just like the audacity of the storytelling that really hit me. The atmosphere of the house. This was my Deadman's Pier. What Deadman's Pier was to everyone last year, Blood Moon was to me.
But you didn't like Dead Man's Pier. You
I
ranked
love
it
Deadman's
really
Pier.
low.
It was just my number 6 or 5. It was my 6. I put
It was way lower than that.
No, I checked. It was my 6.
He's trying to defend himself. Everybody.
Was it my 7?
Pull up the receipt.
While you're pulling that up, Adam, do you ever think about the Roman Empire?
No. I just wonder why people care about Western Civ so much. Oh, yeah, it was my number 6. Yeah.
Interesting.
It was above Halloween and Descendants and Hellblock and The Weekend and Under Coven and Under Chuppy and Under Blumhouse. But bugs. All right. So enough about Deadman's Pier. So with Blood Moon, and I could write a mini pod on it because of what it was. The storytelling of this desperation, you really felt the sense, or at least I did, you felt this desperation in the storyline that really permeated through every room. You felt the desperation in this cult who were murdering their neighbors, people that they love, because they thought that that act of hate, that act of murder would bring about something good, this harvest. It would produce good fruit. And you don't know if it does. The house is very ambiguous on that, but there's a lot of bloodshed, and you really get no confirmation that there's a moon deity. I know in the podcast that they did, the Haunted Tale, they allude that the main character of that story, this convert in the story, he joins because of love. He loves the cult leader's daughter so much, and he asks for a sign from this moon deity, and he thinks that he sees this wind blow and this sign from the moon deity, but you don't get that in the house. That is not present in the house at all. So if we're getting the most objective experience of it, you kind of think they're really winging it here because they are so desperate. And mix that with some great scares. The maypole thing, you could see every corner of the house, no matter what part of the house you're in. Like, that is impressive staging. There are quotable lines. We've been quoting it, all day. But it's really just that sense of desperation. And what I was saying about, like, you don't get that sense at the end. Whit, we mentioned her earlier. She tweeted about that. I'm like, shoot, you're right, Whit. You don't get that ending. It's not a happy ending because you don't know. It's just like, we tried all these other things. We tried doing it the normal way. Let's try it the murder way. And it's a really sad story. It's a really dark story. And I really love that Horror Nights took that swing and something different in these stories that they've told. At least that I've done. Again, I missed the first 28 years. I missed 28 and a half years. So yeah, that storyline and just the atmosphere and the sets, those are going to be things I'm going to be thinking about. And I've been thinking about them more than individual scenes of Unmasked. And that's why it's my number 3 over my number 4. That's how I'm justifying it. But it really is tough to kind of parse them together. It's like, what am I still thinking about? That's kind of why Tooth Fairy moved on my overall list, because I was thinking about it more, and I love it more. And I think Blood Moon I'm going to keep on thinking about as we leave HHN 32 over some of the others. Not my number 1 and my number 2, though, but it's not time for that. But yeah, my 3 through 7, I hope you can see like how they are pretty much tied for me. There's just like the slightest differentiations between these things.
Ugh, crazy that Monsters is at your 4. I can't even like... I
know.
I can't get past that.
I know.
That's crazy.
It's
but now, it's time for our top 2. When I'm telling you that my top 2 are tied, that is like saying something, because we all know how everyone can guess what my number 1 is. Everyone knows. And the fact that this one is tied with that, like this house, I did this house 15 times. Most nights when I would go, when I was up in Orlando, I'd literally go and do this house and leave. This house is, in my opinion, the greatest original that Horror Nights has ever done in 32 years. Darkest Deal was just absolutely phenomenal. It was gorgeous. It was sad. It was terrifying. It smelled good. I liked that dirt smell. It reminded me of Wicked Growth. That house reminded me of Wicked Growth, and I loved that house. It was, oh my God. Like, I don't even know what to say. The sets were just gorgeous. That graveyard, the one character with the candles all over him, he got me so good every single time I went in. Even if I was looking at him, I was turning the corner, I could see him in his boo hole, scare the absolute like soul out of me, literally, because the point. Oh my God, the collector. I need this to be like there every year. Like, they can do 10 houses plus Darkest Deal, because it was so good. This was so low on my preseason hype list. This was literally number 8, and now it is my number 2. Oh my God, I love Pine Shaw Spruce. I love him. I would cheer for him every time. I'd always end up seeing the same cast, so it was always the same people. The piano scare. I'm so glad it made its return in the final few weeks. I got it my last run in that house on a closing night because I didn't the night before. Oh my god, the ghillie suits, the mirror collector and the goats, and I will miss this house so much. Like literally yesterday, I was like, oh my god, we were going through Darkest Deal for the last time at this time. I was like, it was just, I wish there was a little bit more blues music. I do wish that there was a little bit more music in it. But it was, oh my god, like the narrations that you can hear walking in, and like the scene with his mom, and then the goat coming out of the curtains. I didn't see that until like the last 2 weeks. I never got that. Oh my god, the scene with the collector in Pine Straw, and he takes a soul and he's like blue and glow. It was just, I could go on and talk about this house for hours. Universal did such a good job on this house, and I need them to do more houses like it, because this was the most incredible thing I've ever experienced. But number one, it's Stranger Things. Like, we all knew this was gonna happen. I said at the beginning of the year that this house was always gonna be my number one. I did it 17 times. I started the season with it. I ended the season with it. It was my last house of the season. I know a lot of people say that it wasn't a good house. It was the worst Stranger Things house. The sets weren't that well, like, done that well. I've heard a lot of that. I don't care. You two know how much I wanted to experience a Stranger Things house. Y'all knew how I reacted when the announcement finally came out. Like, that house was everything I wanted and more. It is my number one house I've ever done at Horror Nights. Like, I don't even care. Like, it is, oh my god. Walking into that house for the first time and just sobbing. Like, closing out that house, sobbing. Seeing all my favorite characters minus Hopper. That is my one complaint. Where was my man? But it's fine. It went through every big part of the season pretty much. And it was just like so crazy, like the detail, like walking into Eddie's trailer. It was just like come on, like, you're joking. And like Vecna, I loved Vecna wearing Docs. Killed me every time. It was so funny. But like, just like experiencing that and like seeing your favorite characters right in front of your eyes is something that is so special. And I want to cry, like, thinking about it. Like, that house, and I had friends in that house, so I was able to give Robin a couple friendship bracelets, which just like, I cried really hard. And then closing out that house, seeing Eddie on the stage, and just like him coming over and like doing little rock on hands, and I'm just like hyperventilating, sobbing, and like, Steve, and like the sets were so good. I don't care if they use a lot of screens. I mean, I do a little bit. I wish there was a little bit more physical set, but like, doesn't take away points for me. Like, I feel like I've been at a loss for words for 90% of these houses, but this is one that I really can't even like begin to describe how much I loved that house and how it was so perfect to me. And it was, oh my god, it was just the best. And I'm like really sad that it's not going to be at Horror Nights next year. And even more sad because like we just got a grandfather clock, and it looks like the one that like is in Stranger Things. So anytime I walk past it, I hear like the chime, and I'm like, oh. But that house, getting to like close, I didn't close down the house. I wasn't the last few people. I wasn't dealing with that bloodbath. No, I wanted to, wasn't dealing with that. It was just so special, and I don't care what anyone says about it. I don't care that it's your number 10, Adam. Don't look behind you. Yes, you. Not Pisces in the back. You. It is just, it's the best, and it gave me the best experiences, and I'll never forget it. And I really need them to do another Stranger Things one and put Hopper in the house. But also, if they wanted to make it a perma-haunt, like over in Vegas, I fear I would be moving to Vegas. But also, I'm warning y'all now, if I'm like this over Stranger Things, just wait until we get Scream. Just wait. My ranking for that year will just be 1, Scream. Nothing else will exist. So just wait.
Fair enough. I was very excited for you when they announced Stranger Things 4, because I know you had been really wanting to do that.
I was excited for you too. I also love that you have like that permanent first place. Like that's such a special thing to have.
Yeah. I knew it wasn't going to change. Nothing. Darkest Deal came close though.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well,
Stranger Things, my child, my baby.
I did not have that experience. I'm having the same experience, the same turmoil that Adam had with his 3 and 4. Like, if I say this out loud, this is gonna put this like, I don't know. It could change tomorrow. I don't know. Yeti was my number 1 for a while as well. It's a fantastic house, and I loved it. So it's really hard. So 1 and 2 are basically tied. There's one that's kind of not an original. It's an IP. And then the other one is an original. And so they were my favorite, obviously, of each of those categories, but I don't know what to tell you is number 2, but I'm going to say that it is Darkest Steel. I loved that house, though. It's great. I couldn't, the only thing I could tell you why Darkest Steel is lower, I'll get into it when I get to my number 1, actually. But it's the storytelling in that house. I do think it's one of the best originals that they've ever done. I think it's probably the best storytelling original they've ever done. Because my favorite house of all time is an original, and that has not changed since 2008. But the storytelling in that one was very different. It was very choppy. It was not, that was the whole point of it. This one, like the throughout storytelling, was the best I've ever seen in any Horror Nights house, IP or original. It was amazing. I loved Pine Straw Spruce. I loved that you get some background as to why the name was changed, and it's like heartbreaking, and the letter to his mother that you hear as you're walking in is sad and beautiful and tragic and amazing. And you get to see the contract literally being signed, which is really cool. You get to see the collector, and he's spooky. You get to see several stage moments, which are both incredible. It's very scary, the graveyard scenes. This probably is the house that scared me the most. My first few runs, I ranked this super low. Like, it was probably very close to the bottom my opening weekend, just because I just didn't get good runs of it. Like, there were like the stage scenes were great, but I just wasn't getting the scares the right way and things like that. And I kind of wasn't paying enough attention and didn't hear things as much the first weekend because it was just the chaos. But it very quickly shot to the top of my list and has been at 1. It's been, going back and forth at 1, 2, and 3 with the other 2 that I've mentioned. Well, I haven't mentioned one of them, but if you're paying attention, you know what it is. Or if you're doing this podcast with me right now and you can see what my background is, you know what it is. But yeah, Darkest Steel is amazing, and I just loved it. It was so scary. The lady in the graveyard that's like, whoa, she's like a ghost. Oh, horrifying. Anytime they get up in my face, it's crazy. There were also several times where actors in this like didn't hit their trigger and they just came out in the darkness at me, both in the hell area and in the ghillie suit people, and those were horrifying.
There was one time my friend and I went through it, and the ghillie suit was kneeling on the floor, yet still hitting his trigger on the wall. When I tell you, I almost levitated. It was the scariest thing I think I've ever experienced. Like, it was horrifying.
I would have pooped.
You would have been like the lady
one of the
monsters.
ones that have scared me.
It was horrifying, but it was so good. It was so that house.
I agree.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. There was one time, I think it wasn't when I went with Adam because I was in the front that time. I don't know. Whoever I was with, the first like demon on the left in hell, whatever it is, Hades hell, like jumped out at the person in front of me, and I was like, I'm safe. But then they jumped out at me with their trigger off, like in the darkness, and I was horrified. And then there's like the ghost, or not the ghost, the goat mirror scare. Oh, that house is just so incredible. I loved it. It's great. The Collector, there was a scene the last time I went through it where I blew him a kiss and he was still at the one at the end, he was still like back in the shadows, and he hit his trigger really fast and popped right out at me and was like, "You're mine forever." And I was like, "Oh, how nice and romantic and scary." But yeah, no, I loved it. It was great. Gosh, and the smell was great too. That's a great house. So my number 1 is Universal Monsters Unmasked. And the only reason I can give you that it beats out the Darkest Steel is because when I think back on Darkest Steel, of course, great storytelling, but I think pure terror. Oh, I didn't even bring up there's like a robed ghost in one scene that was just relentless and just kept popping out at everyone and like got me every single time. Anyway, that was great. But I just remember pure terror. In this house, although it did scare me every time I went through it, I remember pure joy in just the best of ways. So much smiling and happiness and interactions. This is the house I went through the most. So Darkest Steel and Yeti and also Dueling Dragons are tied for the second most that I have done in a house, which was 14 runs. I did monsters 22 times and I wanted to do it more, but I just couldn't get out there more. I did it several times a night. I would marathon it while the lines were short. It's just so good. And I usually went through it with cast B. I think that was probably like most of my runs. Like there might have been like 2 or 3 where I did cast A out of all of those. Like there's probably more than that, but the vast majority of my runs were with the same cast. So I just built a relationship with them. The constable in the first room always, I don't know if he actually remembered me, but he treated me like we were best friends every single time. I would give him the most dramatic wave and we would have the most fun interaction no matter where he was in his script. He always gave me heart hands. It was just the nicest thing, and we had lots of fun interactions. He would catch kisses that I would blow him. He would point at me and shame me for being out too late and that I have to protect the women and children or whatever he says up there. I don't know. I was just starry-eyed like, "Hello up there, friend." And that was great. The phantoms were just relentless and horrifying, and I know there's too much phantom in that house, but I didn't really care because I loved him and he was so creepy. I loved that they had the iconic scene of her taking off his face in the, projected on the wall. I loved the smells in there. We won't talk about that. One of those is like when Christine, or not, it's not Christine, but somebody, well, is it Christine burning? Somebody's burning.
I don't know. It's hard to tell.
We won't talk about the fact that that's a burning body, but I really like the floral smell in there. And then there's like some there's 2 mirror scares in there. Like, so there's where he comes out of the mirror and then he comes like back. There's that. But if you look on the right side, which I never did until my last few runs, the one that comes out of the closet also has a mirror scare in there where you can see him through the mirror. So like that was just brilliantly done. There was probably a little bit too much of the red curtains, but honestly, it's like 2 rooms. I don't care. I wish that people would have popped out of the like the theater boxes. Like those rooms were a little empty, or yeah, those 2. But it's fine. I can forgive them because it was the best thing in the whole world and I loved it so much. I didn't even know how much I loved these monsters. They are like the B-roll monsters and they're my new favorites of all time. They're perfect. Invisible Man was great. I loved his room. I loved the hand. I loved doing the Unmasking the Horror tour and seeing all of the details, like that there's one sign that in French says this is a French sign or something like that, and there's like nods to Creature, and there's the bicycle for Invisible Man. There's scenes from the movies, but you really don't have to have seen the original movies to love this. Hyde is horrifying and relentless, and there's a spinal scare, which is amazing, with a live actor in there with Hyde. There's a ton of voice lines that I could quote all day long. Extra, there's the "my baby," there's "no blood, not my fault, you killed my Esmeralda, she is mine," like just so many. "My fingers around your throat." I could go on for days. So it's just so good. I wish I could live there. There was the Caspi second Hunchback, which I do wish there was more Hunchback. Like I would blow them a kiss every single time, and they would always have the same kiss to blow back to me. And even if they didn't jump out with their trigger, I would do it while they were in their boo hole, and they would still do it back. And it was just great. At the end, when all three of them come out at you, if you can get that timed correctly, it's brilliant. And I got that several times. Hunchback timing was great with the jump down scare several times, and it was just so much joy. It was probably the most joy I've ever felt in a house. I just loved it. It made me so happy. I wish I could have done it more, but it was wonderful, and I couldn't put anything above it when it got towards the end and I had done it so many times because I just built such a rapport with those monsters. I wish I could have closed it out on closing night, but I still got great runs, and it was just so good, and I loved it.
That was so sweet.
I miss
so
them.
cute.
I miss them so much.
So my two, I was going back and forth the whole time as well. These are the houses I am going to miss the most from this event. And they are definitely in my top 10. And both are kind of mulligans from 2019 because one house that one of these houses resembled, I was too scared to really appreciate. And the other house I completely didn't do. So I was really glad to do the sequel. And I love them both for different reasons. As you know, the two houses left in my thing are Darkest Steel and Yeti. Similar to last year, it's the scariest house and it's the comedy house. Which one do I love more? Because like Bugs and Legends Collide before it, it's so hard to decide. But ultimately, what I've locked in on is one of my most done houses at the event this year. My number 2 is Yeti Campground Kills. I adore this house. I adored this house. If you had a bad run, it's like, well, I could just go right back and do it and love it even more. This is probably the first house I was really catching a lot of, like this and Descendants of Destruction last year. I was really catching a lot of the set details and really appreciating that. I saw the poster for the Jackalope. I saw the first aid kit was HHN 32. Wonderful stuff. After the first 1 or 2 times, I was already quoting it. You know, what the hell are those things? Like, love that. Have you seen my son? Have you seen Billy? Billy, where are you? Billy! And I'd yell it to her all the time. Like, Billy! Like, it was my favorite thing to say.
I go, I don't know, Queen. Maybe in Stranger Things.
Nah, I just say Billy, and then that's followed right up with Happy Retirement, hilarious. Yeti bait, where the Yeti is the bait for the Yetis, and then Billy, he gets taken away by a Yeti. Hilarious if you get the right sense of humor. If you have a good sense of humor, this house is hilarious to you. So much about this. I love the Yeti hand that came down. I don't know if we talked about him. Same with Pandover and Monsters. I love when the hands came down. It made me happy. Yeah, Yeti hand was great. It was just, I really got joy out of it. It's probably the house I'm going to miss most going through. And, you know, every time I did it, I'm like, is this going to be the time that Yeti lets me down? Have I done it too much? And that never happened. What else am I going to miss about this house? Too much. I also had a similar experience to y'all, where it's telling friends of mine, like, oh yeah, it's the comedy house. It's fantastic. I love it. And then they would come back and be like, what kind of sick and twisted person are you to think that that's funny? It was terrifying. And I think the Yetis heard me saying this is the comedy house because while the humor remained, they also were actively seeking trauma after that. Wow. They got so scary and I got so jumpy that I would jump at ops. I'd see an op and I'd jump as if they were a Yeti. And then I'd get scared by Yeti at the end as I'm jumping at the op on the right. He's like, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm scared. And then the Yeti goes, bleh. I'm like, I love your house. As I'm running out of the house. I love you. Yeah, it was great. HHN Bear. Yes, this was my first HHN Bear in the flesh. And HHN Bear, I don't know if my applause is picking up, but I'm applauding because you're wonderful. There's just too much that I love about this house, and I'm so glad I finally got to do a Yeti house. Even Yeti, like the misnomer, that's hilarious. This is the same house where a baby gets eaten in shadow, like, and then like smashed against the RV window. That was revenge for Billy killing Renesmee. Like, that's, I don't know, I'm twisted, but that's hilarious to me. Like, they capture the dark humor so well, and they really balance that tone from being terrifying and violent and just plain hilarious. And then I love when a house ends on a good climax where you just hear the drums going boom, 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 and then they just get you with all the scares. It's wonderful. This was my number one for a long time until I fell more in love with The Darkest Steel. Oh, man. So when I was alluding to a house in 2019 that I was too scared to really enjoy, it's because it was my second house ever. First three houses are always the scariest, I feel like, with horror nights, where you don't know if you can make it, and then it gets better. So I never really got to appreciate graveyard games too much because it was long and it was brutally terrifying. But it had great storytelling. I wasn't able to pick up on that because I was trying to run out of the house as soon as the dark hallways happened and they were talking about Red River. Someone come over. I'm like, it's probably not going to be anything good. Get me out of here now. So The Darkest Steel, now that I'm a more mature and experienced haunt lover, getting to do the scariest house at the event and having the most terrifying run. Kelly and I basically had a solo run through The Darkest Steel where it's basically just the scareactors and the ops and us. Which it's as terrifying as it sounds. This is the house where I would look at a scareactor and they said, you looked at me, so I'm going to scare you very badly. There were the no trigger scares. There was the goat at the end that haunts my dreams with, you can see him in the mirror and then he's in your face. I remember one time I turned around to see the set dressing behind me, and then I looked forward and the goat was like inches from me, and I was against the wall. After this house, I was up against the wall in fright so many times, but especially here, I knew I was going to be able to feel this house very well because it was always terrifying. There's this ghoul at the beginning when you enter Bubs. I'll dream about that man. I said about this first guy. He had like these small beady eyes, but they were like white or yellow, and he had the symbol on his forehead, and like horrifying. I looked at him, I wouldn't smile at him because he was that scary. I wouldn't run, but I'd be like, I appreciate you, but also you scare me a lot. And then you get out of that room and you enter the graveyard, and that's when I realized, oh, I think graveyard houses and the feeling of death, that just kind of, that gets under my skin. That's what does it. And so successful in that. And of course, that's where they have the triple scare, where it's a musician when you enter, the wafy ghoul, I think wafy is a word, wafy ghoul that comes in from the crypt, followed by trumpet man, just all at once. And I don't have the chance to not scream. And then if you get the big goat man, I don't know, 7 foot goats, something's not right there. Even more so than the Oddfellow Minotaur. This one, it was small, it was cramped, but the story, it was so well told. Y'all caught even more details than I did that just even more enhance it. But it was really easy to follow, but also it was heartbreaking, and they captured that really well. I love it when a house does what Darkest Steel does, where it has the special effects with the projection mapping and the lights and the contract used to sign itself. And I'm like, you did that wow. I love you for that. I think the effect broke towards the end, but still, it was the audacity of storytelling. It didn't break? Oh, then I just missed it. Okay. That's too bad. Yeah, they had special effects, the most solid storytelling in the entire event, and also just the scariest everything. And as I was joking about earlier, like when one day I was supposed to be a solo day, but ended up meeting up with Kelly and her friends, and we ended up doing The Darkest Steel towards the end of the night. And as we were leaving the parking garage, I was going down the escalator, and I just said, "I'll dream about that, man." Talking about the scare actors here, it's easily in my top 10, if not my top 5 of all time. I don't know what else I can say about The Darkest Steel. It was just that good, and I feel like I'm not doing it justice. It was just that amazing. Horror Nights, please do more houses like this. And this is a house that I had low on my hype list just because, I think it'll be great, but I don't want to overhype it for myself, sell your soul to the devil for fame. Like, that's an interesting story, but it's also a story they've done before. Well, maybe not Horror Nights, but we know that story. What will they do to make it different? And the answer is you do it perfect, because that's what they did. What a year, what a house, what a lineup.
What a year.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's funny because I remember having it the highest on my hype list by quite a bit, and I had it at 5 on my hype list. So it's just it's one of those concepts, but I was really intrigued in it. But it's just one of those things where, like you said, like it could be very generic and fail, but it wasn't. They did such a brilliant job with it. It was a beautiful house. It was a haunting house, a sad house, a scary house. Just it's one of those ones that does not have a happy ending, as happens in a lot of haunted houses. But in this one in particular, it was just heartbreaking. But you're so scared that you hardly can notice how sad it is. It was beautiful. I loved that house so much. I'll think of it constantly. And I think you did do it justice, Adam. There's no words that'll properly describe that house. It's just
I'm so glad
good.
that's like a universal feeling amongst the entire like HHN community. Like this house, Darkest Tale was something really special, and I really hope that we get something like something that feels like that again in the future, because that was I wish I could experience that every day. Like it was just phenomenal.
Yeah.
So
and I didn't even mention that the ghouls that show up, those are supposed to be people warning Pine Straw. It's like, you made a bad choice, don't sign the contract. It's too late for you, but try to get out of it. That's why they're scaring you. That's why they're scaring everybody. It's because don't make the same mistakes we did. It's a fable. And it's, oh my Lord. And then you also feel the dread. Like, why can't every house be like, I know why every house can't be like this. You need different flavors of pine to not get stale, but
I wish that like Horror Nights Orlando repeated houses, repeated originals, not just IPs, because like I'm so sad that we'll never get to do that house again, ever. It's gone. You can just watch it on YouTube. Like, oh my,
yeah. Even on my first run, even though it was like my number 5 for some reason, it's just one of those houses that I got to appreciate more. I mean, my top 4 were all those. Like, I got to appreciate them more, and so they ended up higher. But even though it was my number 5, I thought to myself that this should be House of the Year. And even though I agree with Yeti being House of the Year because I love that house so much, it is because of all the things that it did that I'm like, this needs to be like internally for whatever that prize is worth. This should be of the year. It's definitive. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I'm not sad that Yeti won. I'm overjoyed that Yeti won. But this was my personal.
Gorgeous.
Obviously, it's my number 1, but even so, even if it was my 5, like this should be House of the Year.
Yeah, I agree. I think I knew it would be between Yeti and Darkest Steel, and I think both are phenomenal. Obviously, I loved Monsters as well for personal reasons, but because the cast was also amazing. Wow, that was us talking for what, 3 hours?
Over 3.
3.5 hours. Yeah. Probably. Remember how we said that we weren't gonna do a 3-hour episode? Oops.
We still have so much more to talk about with this.
I know. We still have
to talk about Nightmare Fuel. We still have to talk about the Hordes. David Pumpkins. Are just the vibes, the experiences, what we loved, like about the whole event as a whole.
There's so much to say.
Oh my God, this year was so good. It was so good. It was so good.
If we were just going by the cast, it would have been a toss-up between all 10. Every single cast was incredible. It was just so good. I loved it so much. This year was great. It's very closely tied with 28 for my favorite year of all time. This one might be my number 1 of the event as a whole, just because of the people that I got to be around. It was just really incredible. But
I'm gonna cry about Horror Nights, guys.
No, literally, I've already been doing that. Like, I can't.
Oh, just wait till next episode.
This year was so special. It was so good. Period.
Thanks for listening to us talk for way too long.
Yeah,
we love you guys.
We'll see you again soon for everything else.
Yep, everything else. But it deserves it. It's that good.
It deserves its own. Darkest Deal deserves its own episode.
Like, Scare Actors, we love you so much. You all give it your all.
Scare Actors. Don't you mean slay actors?
They do slay. And they don't always get the respect they deserve. But know that we love all the effort that you put into it, because that's why we feel what we feel. And that's why we take away what we take away.
Love you. Kisses, smooches, hugs.
stay tuned this week for the continuation of our celebration of Halloween Horror Nights 32. And on Friday, our general thoughts of the event and everything else that we did not yet talk about, as well as a special surprise at the beginning of Friday's episode. So stay tuned for that. It's going to be wonderful. But special thanks to our patrons over at patreon.com/themeparkworkshop. Special thank you to our $20 patron, Jen Harvey. So humbled by that. You're in the Amazing Adventures tier because you are amazing. Special thanks also to our other patrons who are just as wonderful: Landon Kanoki, Jonathan Edward, Jordan Buster, Greg Harvey, and Joshua Gonzalez. You can follow the show at Workshop TP on Twitter and at Theme Park Workshop on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. You can also follow us individually. You can follow me, Adam, at AdamJ_film on Twitter. You can follow Kelly on Twitter at Killer_Kells. And you can follow Bella at Bella Harvey with 2 Y's on Twitter. And you should follow her theme park photography Instagram account, which is at Flynn Rider's Nose. While you're at it, subscribe to the YouTube channel, comment below, subscribe to the podcast feeds, hit the pull down on Spotify, share the show with your friends, stay tuned, give us your rankings, all of those wonderful things, and we'll see you later this week. It's gonna be great. Spooky Friends!